All right, Billy, thank you so much for being a guest on Wicked Smart Golf today. I get the chills just thinking about some of the talks we're going to have today about your amazing career, beating Tiger, and just so many other amazing accomplishments in the game. So, first off, just want to say thank you for being a guest on Wicked Smart Golf.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I've listened to you. I've read your book and done a lot of things, and I'm looking forward to this. It ought to be a lot of fun.
It's you've done so much in the game, and I'm a little bummed though. I think you moved away from Arizona, and that's where I live here. I'm in Scottsdale, so I was hoping to tee it up with you, but it sounds like you moved away a few years ago.
Well, we did, but we actually have moved back to Arizona. Oklahoma was wonderful, and we still have our house here. We're trying to sell it right now, but I'm a native from Arizona. My wife was from originally from Edmond, Oklahoma here, and we thought this was kind of maybe a good move to move back here, and unfortunately it just didn't quite work out that well. And like I said, we're in the process of selling the house and moving back to Arizona. So
Gotcha.
I missed that green grass in Arizona.
You missed the desert golf too. If you want to give me some lessons on how to navigate desert golf, I still have some room to improve, even though I've lived here for 14 years. So you grew up in Arizona. I'd love to kind of rewind. Obviously, your name is synonymous with the PGA Tour, being on the Champions Tour, doing a lot in the pro golf world. But you had a very successful amateur career. So like, when did you start playing golf? When did you realize like, wow, this is something that I'm going to really move forward with in my life and really started to enjoy?
Well, I did a lot of sports growing up. I loved to play baseball. I loved to swim. I was on a swim team. I was on a state swim team, and I loved to play golf. But the biggest thing between the swimming and the golf was I'd swim on Monday and I get a ribbon, and on Tuesday I go to a golf tournament and win a trophy. So the trophy to me was a lot cooler than the ribbon. So that made that decision pretty easy. And as I'm finding out now more, we'll talk about more about the autism later. As I found, I love going to the golf course. I love being out there for hours by myself, just hitting balls and doing stuff. So, and plus, I wasn't a very big kid. I didn't hit it very far, but it didn't matter in golf. It was a matter of getting the ball in the hole and all that. So I enjoyed doing it every day and kind of fell in love with it and played very well. I went to Camelback High School there in the Valley and stayed close to home and obviously was recruited all over the country to go. And I even looked here at Oklahoma State at the time, but it was too cold. It was just the weathers weren't right. And I had everything I wanted there in Arizona. My instructor was Arch Watkins, who was out at Papago Park. His son Scott's out there right now. So it just was too good of a fit for me. I knew all the golf courses too well to qualify on, and I just had everything I wanted right here and in Arizona. So going to Arizona State was a very easy decision.
Yeah, I mean, you have, like you said, had so much success at the courses. You knew what you were getting into at a lot of the places. That makes it obviously a lot more helpful. But one thing I wanted to just kind of ask about too is you said, you weren't hitting it very far, but it doesn't really matter. You were figuring out how to get the ball in the hole even at a young age. Your childhood sounds exactly like mine. I hit it 170 yards. I went into high school. I was 4 feet 10 inches, hit it just nowhere. So I spent all my time at the short game area. I just fell in love with chipping, putting. I would park my Honda Civic next to the putting green and turn the lights on just when it got dark out to keep putting. Like I just love the short game, and it sounds like that was a big part of your development as a player, just trying to figure out how to get the ball in the hole and really learning some of those shots at an early age.
I did. I knew that I knew in time I'd grow a little bit bigger and get a little bit stronger, and the long game would come. And obviously, equipment made a big difference with that too. But the head pro out there at Papago, Arch Watkins, allowed me to pick up balls on the side of on the range whenever I could, and that's what I did on the weekend when I had more times. But when I had more time, but on the weekdays, my mom would drop me off at school, and I'd have 3 or 4 or 5 hours there at the course, and I would just go to the chipping green and chip and putt, and got to know a lot of people. Grew up with Heather Farr and Missy Farr, and Heather was like a sister to me, and we had all kinds of putting contests and just had a ball out there. And like I said, loved working on the short game. And then, like I said, then when you got to play in a tournament, you got to win a trophy, and that was pretty cool.
Absolutely. And you had an amazing junior career. I'm just looking at some of your accolades I had written down here. I mean, you won the U.S. Amateur Pub Links. You won the 1987 U.S. Amateur. I mean, these are huge events. Like how at a young age, I'm always like curious because I was not a good player as a junior, as I mentioned before we hit record. So I'm really curious, like how are you able to deal with that kind of pressure even at a young age? Did you just have so much skill, or is that something, the mental game at that point wasn't really even talked about? It's more, the last 10, 15, 20 years. Like what were you doing as a junior even to really take your game to the next level?
Well, it's hard to say. Obviously, the social media wasn't like it is today. You have a kid in who, if you have a young player today, like what I would have done in that time, he'd be all over the internet. He'd be, the next Tiger Woods. He'd be this, and there'd be so much pressure on him. I didn't quite have that. Even though all the amateur tournaments and all the amateurs that I'd won, um, I still was kind of unknown. I mean, I remember PJ Boatwright from the USGA telling me that I'd make the Walker Cup team if I lived on the East Coast. But since I live on the West Coast, they're not sure if they want to take someone from the West Coast. So that
Wow.
just tells you how different the thinking was back then. But it really wasn't until I got into college and I was competing in college that one, I loved competing every week, but I thought maybe I had enough talent to maybe take this to the next level. And my parents wanted me to finish school, and school was a struggle for me. I had a hard time there, and when they thought I was going back to school my fifth year, I actually turned pro and entered the tour school, and fortunately made it through my first time around, and luckily was on tour then for almost 24 years.
That's incredible. I mean, to go and make it the first time through. I tried to navigate Q School in 2019 for the Corn Ferry, and I'll never forget how nervous I was that first few holes. And looking back on that first day was just like a surreal experience. It was one of the best rounds I ever played, and built a lot of confidence. I didn't end up making it to the next stage. I missed it by a few. But what do you remember, like what that was like to just? I mean, obviously at that time you're going like this is your future. You're telling your parents you're going to do one thing. You're trying to go in on golf. Obviously, the purses weren't what they are today, so it's a little bit more of a gamble. And obviously,
Yeah.
it's golf. It's just so competitive. Do you remember what that first Q School experience was like?
Well, very much so. I remember, you got to remember, for us when I was there, and we didn't have the Corn Ferry Tour. So if you
Right.
missed tour school, you were going to Asia. So there was no other choice in that. So that put a little bit added pressure on you. But I guess I remember I was over at Fort Ord in California, was my first site. And I remember on the practice round day that I drove up and parked the car right there in front of the range. And I looked at all the guys on the range, and they were all kids. I shouldn't say kids, all young men that my age that I had beaten in college. I had beaten them as juniors. I had beaten them in college and all this stuff. And I said, now you got to go out and beat them again. What you did. And a lot of pros will say, what you did as an amateur gives you a quarter out here that no one really cares. But it kind of made me realize that, hey, I got to go out there and still beat these guys again.
Yeah.
Even though I've beaten them my whole life and everything like that, it doesn't matter. I got to go out and do it again. And fortunately, I did. I struggled. I got through first stage there at Fort Ord pretty easily, and then the second stage I went to Houston, which was kind of a mistake because I wasn't a low ball player. The wind blew, played pretty good, and was way back in the field. But somehow I made it through to get to the finals. And when I did get to the finals, I hit my first drive out of bounds. So that didn't start things off real good. But I finished 23rd in the tour school and got my card and got to play right away. And then was fortunate enough and at Doral, which was the first tournament in Florida at that time, finished tied for 10th and made enough money and moved up in the shuffle. And the rest was pretty much history after that. And it took me a while to win out there. And I look back at that now. I'd lost 3 playoffs before I got my first win. And it probably did me better because, if you win right away, you kind of think it's kind of easier. This is where you expect it to happen. And I hoped and expected it to happen a little bit quicker than it did, but it happened at the right time. And I won in a playoff over Mark Calcavecchia and won the Greater Milwaukee Open. And I just my confidence just kept on getting higher and higher. And my only regret is never making a Ryder Cup team or a President's Cup team. That was probably my biggest regret being out there. But I had a wonderful career. I've had met so many different people and got to do so many neat things. I'm really lucky.
I mean, I'm still blown away that you were able to persevere through Q School the first time, and then after doing it with a out of bounds shot to start the tournament off. A lot of my listeners and followers, we talk about nerves and we talk about routines and being able to battle back from tough shots. The first shot of the day, hitting that one out of bounds at the biggest time of your life. What would you say to the average golfer that maybe gets off to a rough start and they maybe hit one out of bounds or hit a really bad shot on the first or second hole? How do you bounce back mentally from that to stick with it?
I was a lot smarter when I was younger than I am now. I don't know if I can answer that question quite as well. But you just got to keep doing what you're doing. You got to keep your swing thought. You got to keep your game plan. You got to go the next hole, and if it's a 3-wood or an iron off the tee, you got to stay with it. You can't change your game plan because of that. And just try to, I was very fortunate growing up, and in one of my first few years on tour, I putted very well, even though I had a very unorthodox stroke. I kind of took it outside and cut it, and I think Gary McCord called it the Billy Loop or and all that stuff. But at least they were talking about it. When they stop
Yeah.
talking about it is when you got to get worried. But I putted very well, I chipped very well, so I was fortunate enough to get through it.
Yeah, all that hard work as a junior paying off at the short game area, getting
Yeah.
you all the way to the biggest stage in golf. What was the first tournament like for you when you turned professional? Was that just like a surreal, like, did you have that moment where you're walking around like, how I made this happen? Like, did it feel sort of surreal?
Yeah, it did. I mean, it was over in Hawaii, so I mean, it was obviously what a great place to start
What a great start. Yeah.
your professional career. But I think the biggest thing was you walk on the range and you go, you see all these players that you watch growing up and all that, and carry the sign for Curtis Strange, all those guys that I carried the sign for at the Phoenix Open. Now I'm playing here with them,
Right.
and it gives you a little bit of time adjusted. I think today a lot of these young kids are coming out a lot more prepared than maybe I was, because I wasn't, you didn't play in tour events. You didn't play in other events other than college events. These kids now getting so many other events, so it's not as much of a shock. But I enjoyed it. I had fun with it. I'm 22 years old. I'm playing the PGA Tour. I mean, I'm not married. I mean, it was a dream come true, and I had fun doing it. And fortunately, that my first year, I struggled. I made $117,000, and I finished 122nd on the list. And that tells you how different it is today. I mean, you got to make $1 million just about in order to keep your card. But I made $117,000. I kept my card, and then the next year I played real well. And then of course in '95 I had a real good year. But just seemed like I got more and more comfortable each year.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like I always hear like the guys when they're playing the same courses a little bit, they starting to kind of understand just like the travel schedule of it and being able to, understand the courses and just how it all works. Like there's a lot going on with professional golf. It's not quite just like show up and do it. You got media, you got cameras, you got fans. You have a lot going on. So the first few years, I know you said you played well. You said you got top 10 and kept your card that first year. I have notes here that you said turned pro in 1988 and then obviously ended up winning 5 times. What was that first win like? Tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I can't imagine the nerves and the feelings that you had in that tournament.
Well, I had lost it was the Greater Milwaukee Open, and I had lost it on the last hole 2 years before that. So I thought I was going to get one there. It was a Tuckaway Country Club. It was a good golf course for me, and I remember I made birdie on 18 to get into a 3-man playoff with Mark Calcavecchia and Ted Schultz. And Ted, I mean, I think Ted made bogey on the first hole, so he was out. It was just Mark and I. And I think we went 4 more holes. And on the 10th hole, because we were playing 10 and 18, Mark hit a real good shot in there about 10 feet, and I missed the green on the short side. And fortunately, I chipped it in. So there again was my short game, coming through in the clutch. And fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to say it, Mark missed his, and I got my first win, and that was huge for me because it got the monkey off the back. Everyone, when are you going to win? You won all these amateur tournaments, you did all this. When are you going to win your first tour event? And when I finally did, it made me relax a little bit more, and I was exempt for a couple of years, and then in '95, I really played well there.
That's amazing. I didn't realize it was a chip in. I mean, to not even have to bring the putter out of the bag is like the ultimate way to finish a round, let alone in a playoff for your first PGA Tour win. That's so cool. What did you do that night to celebrate? Anything special?
Well, the funny thing about it was back then they left, which you would never do today. They left. It was past 6 o'clock. They went to 60 minutes. So my parents are at home just going nuts. They don't know what's going on. And finally, someone called them and they found out that I'd won. And then I called them and all that. But I mean, it wasn't even on TV, which would never happen today.
Right.
So it tells you how the difference was. But to be honest with you, I was so tired after playing all those holes and the pressure and all that. I think I went back and had a pizza and went right to sleep.
Yeah.
And we went to Canada the next week. It was the Canadian Open was the next week. It was a national championship for the Canadian. And after you win, you can flop your arms and you can get to the next stop. I mean, you're just so high and you're ready to go. And it was a great experience. And you get there, everybody's congratulating you and telling you congratulations and nice job and all that. But, you're playing good. I mean, I never can figure out these guys on tour when they win, if they take the next week off. I would play it until, either you miss the cut or you hurt yourself. I mean, you're playing good. It doesn't happen that all, you get in that hot streak. And when you do, you got to take advantage of it. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've actually thought the same thing too. I remember, a lot of guys take off if they win a major, especially, and like Scotty went and won the Masters and then won the next week, and it's like, man, the guy just can't miss. Like I would keep playing too. You don't leave the blackjack table when you're on a heater,
Well, you're
and
on a heat, yeah, exactly.
and
And that's kind of how I felt. I mean, so when are you gonna take a week off? Why would I take a week off right now? I waited for years to play this good. Let's just keep on playing until either I get too tired and I miss the cut, or we do something like that. But you just keep playing.
Can you talk a little bit about the mental like grind that is tournament golf and just the exhaustion that you felt like after that, or really any round? Because I mean, I try to like a lot of my listeners are getting into their first, Arizona golf event or their first USGA qualifier or playing in more club championships. And I've played in, I think, 303 days, I just calculated, of tournament golf since 2017. I mean, I just love it. But some of those days after those tournaments are over, I am exhausted
You're exhausted.
mentally and physically, even if I'm not walking. So it's like you obviously feel that 100 times more when you're competing for hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars. But like, can you share a little bit more about that? Is that just like an adrenaline come down? Do you have any ways that you were able to kind of, battle that? Or was it more like emotional management throughout the tournament?
Well, it's something you get used to. It's a job. It's just like going working every day from 8 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's just something
Mm-hmm.
you do. But for me, it was something. I was 24, 25 years old, so I was a lot younger. Had a lot more energy. But I remember the greatest comment. I'd go out to the club either up at True North or do something like that, and someone would say, "Well, what do you do? Why aren't you playing this week?" "Well, I'm taking this week off." He goes, "Oh, if I was on the tour, I'd play every week. I would never take a week off." And then that same person goes and plays in the club championship on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and he's exhausted and he's tired. I said, well, "Okay, now go home, pack, get on an airplane, and go to the next one and do it again." And they can't do it. They just can't. They just can't. They don't know how tiresome it can be, and it is a mental grind out there. And it is even more now because the golf courses are longer. You have a lot more other situations with media and attentions and all that stuff out there than what I had. But it's a grind out there. And when you hear players say that, I mean, recently, Steve Stricker, skipped the PGA this week because he's tired. He's played in
Hmm.
the Regions last week, which is a major. He's got a major, the PGA Senior next week, and then 2 weeks after that, he has his own tournament up in Minneapolis, and he just says, "I'm tired. I need a week off." So I think I might have played the big PGA Championship Valhalla and skip the Senior if I was him, but that's his decision. But it just tells you the grind out there. Even at 50 years old, and he's 50. I think Steve's 50. He's older than I am, so he's 57. But it's a grind out there, and it takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, it's just crazy. People don't realize it, and they're like, "Oh, golf's not a sport, this and that." And I'm like, I challenge you to go play tournament golf for a few days and then talk with me afterwards. I think people will change their mind. You might not have the physicality of football or something, but the mental grind is real, and every shot counts, right? Especially at that pro level.
And I think another important is you look at some of these young kids. I remember when Jordan Spieth came out, how good he was. Well, he's not married yet. He doesn't have any children yet. Let's see. And you can see now that it's taken more of a toll on him. When you have a normal life where you get married and you have children, it takes time away from it. So I think Jack Nicklaus was always the greatest at that. He had his family. He never missed a family's sporting event. He never missed his son's football games or anything like that. The stuff he did was absolutely incredible for the pace that he kept up out there. But I always, you'd see these young kids come out and play really good. I go, well, let's just wait until they get married and have a couple kids and see how they handle it then, because it really takes a lot out of you.
Yeah, and that's good perspective on Jack. Obviously, had just done so much for the game of golf. Like, and you've played with just so many of these legends of the game. So I have to ask, like, do you ever, when you were out there on tour, did you feel like starstruck? Like, wow, I can't believe I'm playing with this person or this person, or were you able to, kind of compose yourself? Like, I just can't imagine as someone that's playing with these guys that are just everybody knows their name. Like, what is that like to still be able to play your game and not let it get the best of you?
Well, it's nerve wracking. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I'll tell you one of my best stories was my 1988. I got to play the Masters, my first Masters as the U.S. Amateur champion, and the first round I got to play was with Larry Mize because he was the defending champion,
Right.
and both Larry and I, which we actually showed up with the same shirt on in the morning, and luckily he had a different shirt, so he changed, which really would have been awkward, but. Back then in the Masters in '87, they repaired everything. And you were in a twosome because the field was smaller and all that.
Mhm.
And I can tell you the funny story was I had to call the clubhouse. There wasn't any computers, wasn't anything like it is today, wasn't on the TV or anything like that. I called Augusta National and asked for my tee time on Friday. And I said, Billy Mayfair, I had shot 77. I didn't play very well, but I said, what's my tee time? Oh, Mr. Mayfair, you're off tomorrow morning at 10:10 with Mr. Palmer. And I said, can you repeat that? Yeah, with Mr. Arnold Palmer. I said, okay, thank you. And that was kind of a sleepless night there. That's for sure. Arnold was wonderful.
Were you sleeping in the crow's nest as well then?
No, I went back and played a practice round. I played some practice rounds before the Masters and stayed in the crow's nest, which was a lot of fun. But when I went back for the tournament, I brought my family and some friends. We rented a house there. But the crow's nest is interesting, and it would have been awful loud there during the tournament because you're right on site. But I'm glad I got to spend the night there. I'm glad I got to experience it and all that. But when I got to play with Arnold on Friday at the Masters, he was wonderful. He had shot 77 the day before, and you could not have told if he shot 77, 67, or 87. He grinded on every single shot. He told me stories out there in the golf course, and I guess the thing that I remember the most about is, the last few holes, I know when we get to 18, I'm going to step aside. I'm going to let Mr. Palmer walk up the fairway and do all that. And we were both going to miss the cut. We weren't in contention. And I hit my shot into 18, and I got off to the right, and Arnold walking up, and he looks back and sees me, and he raises his arm and he says, come on. And he puts his arm around me. We walked up 18 together and to a pretty nice standing ovation and all that. And that is a memory I will always keep in my head. I mean, it was just a wonderful thing. And he signed my hat afterwards. It was just a pure, gentleman that he was. And I've tried to immortalize that same thing when I've been on the tour, because you get out there and you get these rookies out there and you want to make them feel comfortable. And that's what Mr. Palmer did, and Mr. Nicklaus did for me too. I played some rounds with Jack, official rounds, and it was a lot of fun. I got to play with those guys.
Yeah, that's amazing. Arnold always just seems like he just was always so happy, always just just engaging with the crowd and everything. Was that one of those where you're able to like focus on golf? Are you talking with him between shots? Like and you're at Augusta National. I mean, we're at
Augusta National. Let me tell you something. Mr. Palmer grinded on every shot. He didn't talk as much as people think he did. He got mad. He was just as savvy, and he wanted to play good. He did not want to play bad. No. Let me say that to you. He grinded on every single shot. And I learned a lot from that. I mean, here was a guy who'd won how many green jackets and done everything that he has, and he was getting towards the end of his career and grinding as hard as he was on every shot. Taught me a lot about the game and the composure of it. So my other funny story I will say is that I played Memorial one year, and I was having a good year. I was a little cocky kid, and I had season tickets for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and Randy Johnson was pitching against Tom Glavine on Monday. It was Memorial Day. Then I'm going to go to that game. I don't care what anyone says. I'm going to that game. And as normal at the Memorial, we have a few rain delays. I make the cut and all that, and I get paired Sunday with Jack, and we have a rain delay. And we stop at 12. Now, sorry, Jack, I'm not going to hand you your card and say, "All right, Jack, I'm going to the baseball game tomorrow. I'm going to leave you out here by yourself." So I missed the baseball game, but I got to play the last on Sunday and Monday with Jack out there at Memorial, which was a thrill to watch him play that golf course and hear the stories that he told me there. But, it was just, it was amazing to me to get to play with those guys, not just to play a golf round with them, but to get to play a competitive tournament round with them. With Arnold at Augusta and then Jack at Muirfield was a thrill.
Man, playing all these courses, I just have so much admiration for that. Amazing. Augusta, I haven't went yet. That's my biggest goal. And what is it like playing some of these courses too that are just so iconic and everyone knows them? You have bigger crowds, things like that. Does that change just kind of the entire atmosphere when you're at a major? Do you feel like everybody's a little bit more tense and really dialed in?
Well, when you it's a different atmosphere. Obviously, it's a different atmosphere when you get to Augusta. The nice thing about Augusta is that it's at the same sites. The people, the golf course. You've seen it on TV. You grew up watching it, so you kind of know, what it is. But still, when you're out there in that first fairway and you've got a 7-iron in your hand, and you think it's a flat shot, and you're actually standing almost at a 90-degree angle because you're going to hit it straight up in the air, you just realize how hard this golf course is, and these guys make it look really, really easy. And for some of the numbers that Tiger shot it there, it's pretty incredible what they do there. But it's an amazing place. But obviously, when you get to the majors on the big, it's always a different atmosphere. The crowds are there. It's a lot more people. Um, it's a major, and that's why those guys grind so hard.
Yeah, it's I just can't imagine. I mean, I feel like just playing on the tour is already so much pressure, and then everybody obviously wants to win a major, and you're playing these very, very hard golf courses. And you mentioned Tiger as well, and that was in '97 when he just ran away with it, and that was really when I got into golf. And I was 10 years old at the time. I remember just glued to the TV. I was just starting out, and I was like, "Who is this guy? Like, he is just so exciting and fun to watch." And so that was in 1997. He goes and just laps the field, and all of a sudden we were like, whoa, Tiger Woods is here. Like, what was that like even being on tour before we get to your experience playing with him? What was kind of just the like vibe of it? Was it like, wow, this kid really going to do something special, or was it we didn't really know yet?
We didn't know yet. I mean, every year you hear about some hot shot. I think maybe when the year I came on, I was the hot shot. This kid's going to take over. He's going to do this, and 9 times out of 10, it doesn't quite happen that way, because it's just like going from college football to the professional or the NBA. I mean, when you hit that next level, you're going to get humbled. There's no doubt. And you hear it every year. You heard about some hotshot kid coming up and all this stuff. And then one year there was this kid named Earl Woods and Tiger this, and he was going to change the whole world. And I said, well, Jack's still going to be the greatest. No one's going to touch Jack's record. And Tiger he lived up to the hype. Everyone talked about how great he was and all this, and he backed it. He was one of probably the only player that I can really think of that has backed up everything that he's, everyone said this is what the kid was going to do, and he's done that. So I respect him for that. And, I think I call him a very good friend. But I'm to speak now in the future. I mean, to speak right now, I'm absolutely amazed that he's out playing golf. I'm glad he is. I know that's what he loves to do. But for for all the surgeries he's had, and then that car accident, for him playing right now is truly an absolute miracle. And I don't care what he shoots out there. For him to be out there trying is a miracle, and he should be commended for it. And I know he still wants to win. And you could see it even at Augusta when he'd be out there. You could see his eyes, and you could see his brain working. And he knew exactly what he wanted to do. He knew exactly how he wanted to hit the shot. And then, unfortunately, that wave had to go from the brain down to the body, and the body just wasn't going to do the same thing. And it's unfortunate, because he still wants to do what he wants, and he thinks he can, and that's great. But you just can tell that all the surgeries, and then obviously the car accident, has had a big effect on him. But as I said again, for him to be out there this week, even at Valhalla, is a tremendous story.
Yeah, and he really had that short game work in the first 2 days at Augusta. I mean, it was like if he missed the green, I was like, he's either going to chip in or it's going to be a tap in. I mean, his touch was on display, and he made it look easy. And I've heard the walk is really hard there, and obviously with his ankles and everything, that's not going to make things easier. When you got started, or when you're starting to the Tiger roar, if you will, is starting in the PGA Tour world. Had you played with him before your epic duel at the 1998 Nissan Open?
Well, we had played a few times before. He went to Stanford, and he was a Pac-10 player, just like I was at Arizona State. So we got kind of talking about that a little bit. But we had played a few times just in normal rounds. And in fact, when I beat him in '97 at Nissan, we only played that one hole. I didn't play with him all week. I never had to play with him in the tournament round, and I birdied the last hole to get in the playoff with him, and was fortunately lucky enough to beat him in the playoff. And so I only had to play with him one hole that day. So.
I was gonna say you breezed over that like way too easily, man. You are the only let's call this for what it is. Like I said before we hit record, I was trying to find footage of this. You are the only player to beat Tiger Woods in a playoff. I mean, that is amazing. That is a one of a kind accomplishment at this point. Might stand forever. So let's go back to that, because it's such a cool story. I was reading about it. Like I said, I was trying to find some grainy YouTube footage of it, and it said that it got moved. So it was normally at Riviera, right? And then it got
Riviera
moved.
was hosted. Yeah, Riviera that year was hosting the PGA Championship in August. So they didn't want to have two tournaments that close to one another. So we played at Valencia. And one of the nice things there, when you do win the Nissan, they give you a money clip. and I have the only money clip that has Valencia Country Club on it. So I have that very proudly. I carry that around very proudly every day. But the funny story about it was for me was that we had played Tucson the week before, and I was playing really good at Tucson, and I double bogeyed the last hole. I hit it over the top of the flag, buried in the back bunker, ended up making 6 on a par 4, and took me out of the top 10. And I was upset. I wasn't going to go play LA. I was not going to. I drove all the way back to Phoenix after Tucson. And I said, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. I'm upset. And my dad and my mom and dad said, no, son, you're playing good. Get your butt over there and do that. And, I played really good the first 2 days. I think I had a 4-shot lead after 36 holes and just kind of, was in the lead most of the tournament. And then on Sunday on the backside, Tiger, became Tiger. And I knew he was around. I knew that he had birdied 18. I knew I had 17 and 18 still to play. And I hit a real good shot in on 17 and didn't quite make the putt. So 18 was a par 5. So I knew I needed to make 4 in order to win, and didn't hit that good of a drive and had to lay up to about 80 yards. And there again, we talk about the short game. I hit a nice little 80-yard wedge in about 10 feet from the hole and made that to get in the playoff. And, and the playoff was back to 18. So it was a par 5. Everyone thinks Tiger's going to win that because he can knock it on in 2. And fortunately for me, he hit it right off the tee in the trees, which meant he couldn't really go for it. I didn't hit as good of a drive. I had to lay up again. He went for the green, missed it to the right, pin high to the right, and I hit a real good. This time I really hit a good wedge shot in there, and it backed up about 4 feet. And he hit a chip that went past about 20 feet, and then he did his sportsmanship, and he walked back and forth a few times, making me try to look at that 4-footer. And I knew what the 4-footer was going to do because I had just hit the putt. It was on. I was fortunate enough; it was almost on the same identical line, so I knew exactly what it did. And I said, Billy, it's inside left. It's inside left. I said he's going to make this putt. So when he does, hit it inside left, and let's make it. We'll go to the next hole. I mean, you have to be prepared that he's going to make this putt. One, he's Tiger Woods, but anyone out there, you want to expect that he's going to make that. And when he finally did hit the putt, he just missed it. He had a great putt right on the top of the hole and tapped in, and I hit the 4-footer, and when as soon as I hit it, I thought I'd made it, and it just kind of bounced around and went in, and at that moment you didn't realize what you had done. I mean, you talk about it now. We talk about this still 20 years later, but for me, it was a big win for me because it was winning a golf tournament, which is very hard to do out there in the PGA Tour, but also winning on the West Coast, which means that you have almost a 3-year exemption, which was really nice to have. I had the rest of that year, then 2 more years. So that was the first thing that kind of went through my head and all that. And it really wasn't until the next week when I got at Doral when I went in the media room and there's all of a sudden 1,000 reporters there talking to me about beating Tiger, that I didn't realize what it all meant until probably the week afterwards.
Yeah, that I was going to say, just reading about it, I'm like, because it said you shot 67, he shot 66 that day. So you guys are playing really good golf. And then to get into that playoff, when you putted out, and because you made birdie on the last hole, I read that you hit a sand shot to 4 feet and you got up and down for bunker. Once again, the short game on display. What is that cart ride like when you're driving back to 18 to be like, wow, I'm going against Tiger Woods right now? Like, is that just, again, the same thing? We're not trying to overthink it.
Well, no, you of course you're always thinking about who you're going to play. It's a playoff, and you have to understand something. Tiger Woods wasn't what Tiger Woods is today. I don't mean anything disrespectful to him, that he had not won everything. He was not what he is, and all that. But he was still. I knew he lived there. I knew what he was. I knew what he was all about. I mean, but I wanted to win. I didn't care who it was. I was going to I wanted to win this golf tournament, and as time went along, obviously Tiger's career went away. That win became bigger and bigger for me. But driving back, I honestly thought if I could get to 10, I had a real good chance because if I could get by the par 5 and tie him on the first hole, then we were going to play 10 and I think 11 and then back to 18. If I could get through this first hole, then it was a little more equal because we were going to go to par 4. And fortunately, as I said, we beat him on the first hole, and what I think the biggest thrill that I got out of it was I was told later that about 20 tour pros stayed in the locker room and watched. And when I made my putt on 18 to win, they all hurrahed and hoorayed and were happy for me. And to me, that's probably one of the biggest honors you could have is when your tour pros are cheering for you to win. And I don't think they had any disrespect towards Tiger. Don't get me wrong, but
Right.
they wanted to see me win. And to have that many guys cheer for me was really a thrill.
Man, that is just such a cool story. I was kind of reading some old press clippings I could find of it, and it seems like Tiger's still a little bitter. He missed that fairway and didn't give himself a good chance because he knew he had a distance advantage on that par five, but just couldn't get it done, and then left himself a tough putt. And for some reason, he didn't make it. He normally always makes those putts.
There was some
We
reason,
don't.
yeah, I was in the right place at the right time when he missed it. But I think Tiger, I think he really wanted. Obviously, he wanted to win. We all
Oh
wanted to
yeah.
win. But I think he wanted to win because he grew up in that area. He
Hmm.
used to go down to the amusement park right there in Valencia all the time. So it was a special place for him to win. And one of the funniest things was about 2 years later, my wife and I were sitting at lunch in the players round, and Tiger came over and said if he could sit with us, and I said, yeah, absolutely. Tiger, come on, have a seat. He goes, yeah. He goes, I can intimidate all these guys on tour, but I can't intimidate you. So
That is
so,
amazing.
so I just looked at him and kind of gave him a wink and said thank you so much. And like I said, I think we're good friends. And like I said, what he's doing right now is an amazing thing.
That is so cool. The last question I have to ask about that experience was the 4 or 5 footer that you had, because I found an LA Times article and it even quoted you as saying that there was a miss that you had a few years back. I think it was in the World Series of Golf. And it said, if this is the World Series of Golf all over again, kind of wondering, like, am I going to make this? Am I not? It sounds like you were just super committed to the putt. You knew what it was going to do. Tiger was kind of playing mind games, taking his time on it. Did you just really try and stick to your routine? Was there a certain thought that you had on that putt or any of your putts that week?
I stuck with my routine. I had worked a lot with Dr. Bob Rotella. Before that, we knew what the routine was. The fortune, I think the biggest thing for me was it was almost the same putt that I had made on the 72nd hole to get into the playoffs. So I knew exactly what it's going to do. I said, just hit it firm and solid. And it's right in that left edge. I can still remember it rolling. And like I said, it was probably, I think 5, 6 feet, which felt like 20 feet, trust me. But, um, and when I made it, I was so happy because I'd won a golf tournament. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that I had beaten Tiger Woods. That obviously there's a lot to be said for that. But I was more happy that I had won a PGA Tour event. That was the most important thing for me.
Absolutely. And I have to ask, what was it like when you were watching Tiger and Rocco back in 2008? I actually lived in San Diego at the time and went to Torrey Pines on the Saturday, and I went on Monday, but that was a terrible idea because there was 20,000 of us trying to watch two golfers. So we ended up just going to the hospitality tent because we couldn't see anything.
You couldn't see
Well,
anything.
yeah. What were you doing in 2008 during that tournament? Were you
Yeah.
rooting on Tiger or were you rooting on
Well,
Rocco?
I don't want to sit here. I wasn't rooting. I'm not going to sit here and say I was rooting for one particular player. We were actually in Hartford, Connecticut, because we was the next event, and we were all sitting. There was about 50 of us in there, and I would say it was probably mixed. It was probably 50-50. Some guys cheering for Tiger, and some guys, and we said they all looked at me and they go, "We know who you're cheering for, Mayfair," and I said, "Well, yeah, I want to keep my record. I'm not going to wish bad luck on anyone, but I want to keep my record as be the only one to beat Tiger Woods." So, Rocco and I still will tease about that a little bit, today when we see each other. But God bless Rocco, he played so well at the U.S. Open, and Tiger winning on one leg. What a story
Just
that is! What a story that
yeah.
is! That's just amazing. It's just not something that you see today in sports, and I don't think you'd see in golf, and you definitely don't see it in other sports. That's for sure.
Yeah, that golf course is hard too. I go out to the San Diego Amateur each summer, and I am humbled. And we only played at like 7,000 versus those guys are at like 76 for the U.S. Open, or 74 at least for the tournament out there. Now that is a hard golf course. So
Well,
that
not
is
only is it a hard golf course, it's a hard walking golf.
it is.
You got to go up the hill on 12. You're got up and down the hill on 13 and coming back around. And, you stand on one of the greens and you look all the way across the ocean to the other side of the peninsula. And there's the other fourth green way over there and you're on 12. So it tells you how far you walk. So for Tiger, not just to walk 72 holes, but another 18 holes the next day on that bad leg is an absolute incredible accomplishment.
So you won 5 times. Was which one would you feel like was the most special? Was it the first one, or was there a different one that really just seemed like maybe you didn't have it that week and you just kind of grinded it out and made it happen? Does any of those 5 victories stick out above the others?
Well, obviously, your first one, I mean, you love to get that first from Milwaukee, but the 95 Tour Championship in Tulsa was probably the biggest win for me, beating
Mm,
29 golfers who had played the best all year. It was the Tour
right.
Champions. 30 guys in the field. They were the best players that year. And we had played the PGA there 2 years before. And when I think Retief Goosen won there, and it was under par. It was August. It was hot. The golf course was soft. I think 12, 13 under par one. And I knew that going back to that place in October, it was going to be different. It was going to be cold.
Mm.
It was going to be windy. And I prepared myself. Everyone was thinking they had to shoot 10, 12 under par to win. And I said, I take even par right now and be, sit here and see what happens. And that's exactly how the week was. It was completely different. And like I said, I had finished top 10 the week before in Las Vegas. So I had a lot of confidence. But I think the biggest thrill for me was to win on such a hard golf course like Southern Hills in September, and to be at the time to beat, all 29 guys who had played the best all year was a thrill for me.
Yeah, that's an amazing accomplishment to win that one, and like you said, beat out the other 29 guys. And it was the biggest purse I read too. So nice little payday that you had there. I read you had that one, and then it was I believe the Motorola Open. You had another
Yeah, Motorola
big
Wrestling.
payday in that year.
Actually, I'd won two tournaments that had the two biggest purses, so I
That's
knew
nice.
the right to do it. And it was funny for Motorola, for the Western in Chicago. They used to play Butler National, and I could not play Butler. Butler was just too hard for me. It was too much grass out there.
Hmm.
And that was the year they moved it over to where they move it to the public golf course, and it just worked out great for me. I think I shot 73 the first day in a real windy, cool day, and no one else played very good. And then I played very good after that. But to win those two tournaments in the same year with the two biggest purses, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean you've done so
Cog
much.
Hill. I'm sorry, Cog Hill. It was Cog Hill.
Okay.
Cog
I
Hill.
was just,
Yeah.
I'm doing my research this week and I'm like, man, this guy has done so much in the game of golf. 761 events, 478 cuts made, 15 runner-ups, 38 top fives, 5 victories. What is the key to longevity? It's not easy to play consistent golf at the highest levels year in, year out. What would you attribute some of that to? Is it practice? Was it mental game? I know you said you were working with Dr. Bob Rotella, which is, I would love to hear more about that. Like, what do you contribute to just so much consistency? Because that is what every golfer that I talk to, all my coaching students, all my listeners, they all want consistency above all else. So what would you attribute your consistency to?
Well, I played a lot of tournaments. The honeydew list at home was way too long, so I wanted to be on a tour instead of being home doing a honeydew list and all that. So that I played a lot. But no, I enjoy playing. I enjoy playing a lot out there on the PGA Tour. As I said, I think a lot of it goes back to I was very fortunate. I hit the ball a long way at times. I wasn't the longest guy in the world, but I didn't have a golf swing that would hurt my body. So knock on wood, I've been very healthy. I still am today, even on the Champions Tour. I don't have many back problems. I have aches and pains. We all have aches and pains, but I've been very, very healthy my entire career. And I also, I learned at a young age how important that short game is, and working with, chipping and putting at home with Arch Watkins, and then working with Dr. Bob Rotella on the mental side of it, and chipping and putting there. He'd tell me, go hit, you'll hit a bucket of balls and then go over in the chipping green and spend 2 or 3 hours doing that, because that's what's going to win tournaments. And even as we've reviewed today, if you go back to all your wins, it's you've chipped one in, or done something like that. And, it's just funny how that all works. But to me, if you look at most of the guys on the PGA Tour and even on the Champions Tour, the guys who win a lot and win every week, Bernhard Langer is a good example. Their short game, their wedge game, their putting is always very spectacular. I mean, you find most of the guys who are on the top 10 on the money list, they are probably the top 10 in putting too. I mean, it's not Einstein work here. It's not anything special that they do. I mean, yes, I watched the PGA yesterday and a little bit today, and they're talking about how far some of these guys hit it. And it is important. Trust me, distance is important. Don't get me wrong, but you still have to, if you short side yourself, and if you do things, you've got to get it up and down, and save yourself. And I still think the short game is so very important. I tell all the kids when we play in the first tee program down there at Pebble Beach on the Champions Tour, I go, I can tell you hit a lot of drivers. I tell you all that, but I said, work your game from 120 yards on in and get really good at that. And when you get to college and you get bigger and you start weightlifting, then start hitting more ball. And then you have both, because I really think your body doesn't develop to where you want it to be until you get in college, and at least your junior year in high school. So before that time, spend a lot of time short game, a lot of wedge play. One one, it keeps you healthier, and it's better than beating balls all day. And I think in the long run, it helps you in the long run.
Yeah, I just think it's more fun too. It's just like creative. It's a good time to get out there. It's obviously a lot cheaper too. Golf balls. I was at Papago. They were $20 for a large bucket now. I'm like, what is happening in the
Yeah,
world?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so
And,
yeah,
and you can always tell when you go to a range, you go somewhere to practice, you see the driving range is packed, and you look on the putting green, there's nobody there. And you just got to kind of scratch your head and say, there's a reason for that. And you play these pro-ams. I mean, you talk about how many tournaments I've played, how many of these pro-ams I've played. And
hmm
you watch these guys hit these drivers, and they drive it right down the middle of the fairway, and they're 150 yards out, and they're making 6s and 7s. And they're going to go buy a new driver. Let's go buy a new driver. And I go, it's not the driver, boys, but like I said, I can understand why people want to hit the ball and why they want to hit it one way. And that's why I don't understand why the USGA wants to change the ball.
hmm
I know they want to go back to some of the courses out here that are shorter to allow us to play it, but the amateurs aren't going to want to play a different ball than what we play. They want to play the same golf ball. And that's what's great about this sport is that I can go out and play the same ball and the same golf clubs as Scotty Scheffler is right now, who's leading. I can go out and play the same stuff as Tiger Woods is. There's no other sport like that except for maybe tennis. And that's why this great game is so great. And for the USGA wanting to change some of this, I just don't understand.
I couldn't agree more. I very, very disappointed with that. I mean, technology gets better every single year, and amateurs are not getting any better. I mean, we improve
No,
like
no, they're not.
0.1 strokes like every year. I mean, the handicap is still, average males 14.2, average females 27.5. So it's not like we're, breaking par all the time and beating up these golf courses. It's just the top 1% of the top 1%. And so, yeah, that is a little unfortunate. And I didn't even think about all the pro-ams you played in too, which I'm sure you've learned a lot. Is there any common tendencies that you're seeing with these amateurs when you do play up close and personal with them, other than just kind of struggling inside 100 yards?
Well, they struggle inside 100 yards, and you can put your clock onto that. That the amateurs are playing with have hit more balls this week than they ever have to get prepared. They're tired. They didn't sleep the night before, and I can tell you, you can set your watch by it on 12, 13, or 14. They will get tired. I actually carry food with me sometimes and just give them some food because I know they're going to get tired. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not used to this. They're so excited. They didn't sleep the night before. Like I said, they practiced more than ever, and they get to 13, and all of a sudden they're tired. They're just
hmm
tired and they run out of gas. And you can almost set your watch by it. And you see these guys play really good for 9 holes, and then they get down on the backside. They just get tired. And I encourage people to carry, power shakes, carry food, bananas, apples, power bars, whatever you want, keep it in your bag. Just give yourself something to nibble on, because to go for 5 hours walking and not just using your body physically, but to use your brain, you got to have some nourishment out there. And I really encourage that to all amateurs out there, because it's so important to have. I always carry some type of drink or food or something to kind of keep my brain going, because you need it around the 12th hole.
The 12th hole. I'm going to be thinking of you now on the 12th hole always, because I'm kind of
Well,
the
that 6, 6, and 6. You go after
yep,
6 holes, and then after another 6, and then you have
yep.
that little break in there, and it's really funny. It's something that's you would think is common sense. I mean,
hmm
that people would think of that. Well, I'll get hungry and all that, and it's not having a beer, guys. It's not having a shot. It's having an apple or something like that. Now, you may feel better after the shot with a beer, but you know, you being out in the heat or being outside walking and doing all that, even riding in the cart, you're outside, you're going to get hungry at some time. And people just, they can't figure out, why can't I finish strong? Why I always mess up on 16, 17, and 18. And I go, have you gotten some food into you? Just try that once. And, it's just, that's the simplest tip I can give someone is just have a little food out there. That helps your game a lot. Trust me.
That's a really good tip. Yeah, I always I joke I bring my pantry with me. I always have a cooler, especially in
Yeah.
Phoenix here, and I got
Yeah.
Gatorades, I got waters, I got salts, I got like 3 or 4 different snacks. I've got like 5 of my friends on it. So I'm spreading the word here, Billy. I'm trying. I,
Yeah.
I want people to finish strong and play wicked smart. Oh
Well,
man, that's
you want to play good, so then they come back and play it again.
exactly. I was going to say, do you have any other tips just for golfers that are, more on the amateur side, but they're getting into breaking 80, they're getting into those club championships, maybe that first tournament? I've kind of like really, asked my audience to get more into it just because you can learn so much about your game from tournaments and yourself. It's a great mental test. It gives
Oh
you
yeah.
something on the calendar to circle and work towards. What kind of, first time tournament tips, or even, first few years of playing tournaments? It sounds like obviously rest and nutrition's big. Any other tips you just share with those guys to, get the most out of their game?
Well, it's like you said, it's tournament play. You can hit balls all day on the range. You can go out and play with your buddies on Friday afternoon. You can play practice rounds and all that. But it's when you get down to the tournament is when you get to see a lot of things. And not only do you get to see how you play, but you get to see how the other two guys you're playing with, how they're doing and what they're doing. And there's a lot of information out there. I play a lot of practice rounds with Bernhard Langer. What's this guy doing? 62
Mm-hmm.
years old and he's playing there. What's he doing? Unfortunately, Bernhard won't give any of his secrets up. He's German, that German mentality in his, and he keeps his mouth shut. But no, I really encourage people to try to play in club championships, in junior golf tournaments, in amateur golf tournaments, because, like you said, it's you said it perfectly. It gives you something to work for. It gives you something to get up to do. It gets a calendar on your date, and there's nothing wrong with having that heartbeat just a little bit faster on that tournament morning. I've been doing this for a lot of times. I've played thousands of tournaments, and my heart still gets pumping a little bit on Thursday morning. Because if it doesn't, then you don't care. But I try to, it's just as you said it perfectly. You encourage people to play tournaments because that's when you really find out about yourself and you learn. And even after you play the tournament, I encourage people, go to the range then, hit a bucket of balls. The one thing I've never been able to understand with people is they take a lesson. As soon as they get the lesson, they leave. As soon as you take your lesson, you go grab another couple of buckets of balls and you work on what the teacher, what your instructor told you to do to get it down. You got to get that muscle memory and doing all that. And it's the same thing as when you play a tournament. The most valuable thing to play into the tournament is when you get done, what do you do afterwards? Do you go putt for a few hours? Do you go hit balls? Something, because then your mind's going and you're fresh and everything's always fresh to you. And that's when your body and your brain and your muscles learn things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I always tell my players to bottle up that magic afterwards and write down what went well. If you had a bad round, what did you learn from it? Because it's hard when, like you said, even when you get home, your mind's changed. But when you're on the golf course and you just sign your scorecard, that's when like your adrenaline's still high. All you're thinking about is golf. You're not thinking about work or anything else. And you can kind of be like, man, my driving was terrible today, or my putting wasn't good, or my mental game wasn't good. You're able to kind of look at the game a little bit differently right after it versus like the next day. If you try and do it, you're a little groggy. You got 9 things you got to do. You got that honey-do list, and it's and so it's like, yeah, do it right after the round. Is there anything too, like mental wise? You were working with Dr. Bob Rotella at a long time ago, which again, it wasn't that talked about. Now it's everywhere. I love it, and the Full Swing season 2, huge emphasis on the mental game at all levels. And what were you guys like working on back then, or is that because I've read all of Dr. Bob's books? I'm a golf writer. He's like one of my biggest inspirations. He's kind of the godfather of like sports psychology and golf. Like, what were you guys even working on, or did you have like a tournament and you were like, man, I'm mentally not there? Like, why did you even start working with him?
Well, to go back to your one question, is I would say after a round, when you get done playing, write, take a little notebook with you and keep it in your car or do something like that. And just write, and you don't have to write down that I drove it bad today. Like, hey, I worked on getting my left shoulder turned around, or I tried to turn it over. I aimed a little bit left, just something so that if you're not playing the next day, or you come 3 or 4 days later, you can look at that 3 or 4. Okay, then your mind remembers it. The worst thing you do is go out there and work all day, and then you say, "Oh shoot, that's right. Last time I was here, I did that." It's always important to write it down. I went and saw Dr. Bob in 1992. I had created kind of my confidence with my putter wasn't as highest. I'm not going to say the word. It starts with a Y.
I just did a podcast episode about it because I just unfortunately had to deal with it at Aguila down in Phoenix last month. So I understand. We're in a safe place.
Yeah, and then all that. And I went and saw him. I went back there to where he lives and went back to his house. And I don't know how many putters. I must have brought 10, 15 putters. And I remember he said to me, I don't care what you putt with. If it's a short putter, long putter, skinny putter, grip, anything like that. He says, you got to get your eyes into the target. And what he had me do was had me just look at the hole where my target and hit putts. And we went out. He told me about it that night, and I was down in his basement. I probably putted down in his basement for a couple hours, just looking at the target, and it felt pretty good. And then when he got there in the golf course, and all of a sudden you thought about trying to make putts instead of how you were going to stroke it. And what was amazing to me was when you looked at the hole, all of a sudden that your rhythm, everything was there when you looked at the hole. But as soon as you came back, and that's even if you look back at my old putting strokes, when I used to cut the putts, my practice strokes, which I looked at the hole, were always back perfect inside and straight through. When I went back to the ball and stroked it, I took it outside and I cut it. So that just tells you how different your eyes can see things. And I have to say, for most golfers out there, the most valuable equipment that you have are your eyes, because your eyes see everything and your eyes will tell your brain what to do. But to make a long story short, Bob had me, we went out the next day and played, and he made me putt every putt looking at the hole, even chip shots. I had to look at the hole and chip shots. And that's a little bit harder. I mean, I wouldn't encourage that to someone who is just starting. That's a little bit harder, but all of a sudden the feel came back, and it's just, for us, it's a tuning fork. All you need to hit that one shot. That was 1-3 holes. It's 1-3 holes out there, 1-9 holes. That can change everything in what you're doing. And that's what he had me do. And in fact, I actually came home, we practiced it, and actually played in the Phoenix Open with looking at the hole. Now, that was very difficult, living in Phoenix, and everyone knew, and I'm looking at the hole, and boy, I caught some crap for that. But I knew that if I kept doing what he said and kept looking at the hole and all that, about 2 months later, things started turning around, and I ended up having one of my best years for that. So I think sometimes there's too much instruction out there. Everyone's trying to tell you to be perfect every second. I think your eyes, we're all athletes. If I was to throw you a ball right now, you catch it, that means you're athletic. And it's the same thing. You didn't think about catching it. You just caught it. That's one of the greatest stories he told me. If you just throw a ball to someone, they're going to catch it. You know how to do it. Your brain knows how to do it. You just got to get out of the way. And I found it funny that I watched yesterday in the tournament, Phil Mickelson had a big old ugly putter. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of it and all that, but basically that's a putter when someone's at their wit's end. And I did hear a few weeks ago he was thinking about retirement. And if someone's talking about retirement, it means their putting's not very good, especially as good of a player as he is. But he's struggling right now, and we've all struggled and we've all gone through it. But I encourage people to read Dr. Bob's books. I think they're the most easiest to understand. I think people who play golf can understand it. I know there's a lot of other sports psychologists out there. They're very good. I don't study their stuff as much as Dr. Bob's, but there's a lot of different ways of doing it. If you look at my ear, look at Jim Furyk. You would have never thought Jim could have ever done what he did with the golf swing that he had. It was just wonderful. Now, he does know how to roll his rock. There's no doubt. And you got guys out there around, even Scotty Scheffler, that golf swing right there, most instructors would probably tear apart and try to rebuild it. And that's the one thing you got to give for Tiger. When he went, all his instructors that he went, they never tried to tear his putter down. They always let him putt the way that Tiger putted, because Tiger was so good at that. So, there's a lot to be said for that. But I just try to kill people to, whatever they feel comfortable with. But if you're on the driving range, you can't help your putter. If you're hitting balls on the range, you can't work on your putting. So there's no other reason than just to get on the range and, get on the putting green and hit putts.
I love that. You can't help your putter on the driving range. That is so true. And I actually take videos a lot of times when I go practice and I'm on the putting green all alone and the range is just packed and there's people waiting to hit. And there's maybe a couple people on the chipping green, mainly just to be close to the driving range. So when a slot opens, they can get over there. But yeah, the short game area doesn't get nearly as much love as it should. And I'm sure by listening to you today, we're going to get a lot of wicked smart golfers working on their short game. I'd love to learn just a little bit more before we wrap up too, just about what life's been like on the PGA Tour Champions. I know you're still playing a ton.
Yep.
You're just competing still at a very high level. Like, how's that been? How's it different from the PGA? I'm sure you've kind of grown up with these guys, so I'm sure there's a lot of lifelong friends, but I'm sure it's still super competitive.
It's competitive. Yes, it is. It's fun. Most of the guys we put out there, I played junior golf with. I saw Glenn Day. I played with him the other day. I've known Glenn since I was 10 years old. And most of these guys you've grown up with and been around and all that. So you're kind of a family, but it's saved a lot of guys' lives, the Champions Tour, because I think a lot of guys would be bored and silly and getting into trouble if they didn't have this. I love it because I love to compete. I love to practice, keep my body in shape and do everything. So it's been a blessing for me. I would love to play till I'm 65. I think that would be just over 46 years. That would be enough for a career for me. But the PGA Champions Tour is a lot of fun. It's very competitive, but it's not as hard nosed as the PGA Tour is. I know the tour has changed a lot out there, but we all know each other. We concentrate on our pro-ams. I think the people who play in our pro-ams enjoy themselves a lot more. They usually, most of the time, they play two pro-ams with two different pros. I know that on the big tour, they play 9 holes. to me, 9 holes doesn't give you enough time to get to know everybody, but that's what
Hmm.
the way they want to do it, and that's their business. But the PGA Tour Champions Tour does a really good job with our pro-ams, with the participants. So people who get a chance to play that, take that opportunity and play, because I think you really would enjoy it. And we do a good job out there. But like I said, again, it's fun to play. I've known Colin Montgomery for years and years and years. He's never given me a straight answer yet. So, just getting to know these guys your whole life and be around them, and trust me, come Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we want to beat each other as bad as we can, but we give each other a hug afterwards, and that's what's nice.
Yeah, that's amazing. I definitely need to get out to Phoenix Country Club and watch you guys out there. It's just down the street from me, and would love to see you guys still battling it out. Like you said, Bernard, 62. Is that what you said he was? I mean, this guy is just like Mr. Automatic. I'm like, what is this guy doing? So maybe when he retires, he'll publish a book or something so we can get some of his secrets, because it doesn't sound like he's giving any away right now.
Don't count on that one. Don't count on that. The guy, Bernhardt's great. He's wonderful. He's just not going to tell you what he does. And I can tell you how many practice rounds I played with him, and he would tell me he would shoot 80 the next day. I guarantee he can't break 80 the way he's hitting it right now. And you look on the board, he's 6 under, and you just go, how the heck does that happen? So
That is crazy. Well, I know you've went through a lot, since you joined the tour, the Champions Tour, and you had a diagnosis in 2019. Love to learn a little bit more about what's happening off the golf course, just because I know you're really helping a lot of families out there, and just share a little bit more so we can kind of figure out what's going on off the course. I know it's impacted you on the course as well, and hopefully we can spread some awareness.
well, thank you. It's something that's very dear to my heart. In 2019, in California, I was disqualified after the second round for a ruling, and my wife, we watched the ruling. She knew that I was having a hard time understanding what was going on out there. Since that time, I found that the ruling was not incorrect. I should not have been disqualified. I've been told by the USGA that. Unfortunately, the PGA Tour is not going to do anything about that, and that's their rights. But at that point, my wife Tammy knew that I needed to get some type of help. I needed to get tested. She didn't know quite what it was, but we thought it was some type of autism. And you have to remember, I fought tooth and bone against her. I did not believe it. Everyone else is wrong. I'm right. Everyone else is different. I'm the normal one, that type of deal. And after the disqualification, we realized that something probably had to be done, or I needed to take some type of action here, or my career was going to go down the tank. And I was tested and I was diagnosed with high functioning autism. It was a 1-day test. It took about 8 hours to do. And even after I took the test and got the results, I still didn't believe it. I still didn't want to. I was still normal than everybody else. And I said it took about 3 months after the test came out till I finally sat down and read it. And it was real funny. What I have is high functioning autism. It just means that takes me a little bit longer to figure out things sometimes. Sometimes my brain gets focused on one particular thing so hard that I don't see the 3, 4, and 5 with other things that are going around me. And I think that's very common in a lot of great athletes. And fortunately, in the world, as I'm learning now, coaches in high schools, coaches in college, even NFL coaches, even professional coaches are realizing that these players that have autism are a diamond in the rough. I don't want to mention any names, but there's a lot of top professionals that are out there that probably don't think they have it, but they do. And it's becoming. But what I realized is I just needed a few seconds more to understand things and to comprehend. And if someone came in and distracted me, as an official coming to me after I tee off and saying, "Well, you're out of position," or "You guys got to speed up," or something like that, my brain went back to point A, and it took me a while to get back to B and C. So I'd stand out in the fairway, and it looks like I'm taking more time and being a jackass because I'm being slow, and my brain's trying to get caught up in all that. So we realize now the officials have to tell me before I tee off so that I don't have to restart and all that. But it's just giving myself a little extra time and understanding. I still have a very hard time with facial expressions. Sometimes I can't pick those all up and all that. But we're finding out more and more as we're doing this that the people that do have this are very focused. It's a very high focusing type of thing. And what I loved about it is, like I said, when I would drop off at the golf course, at 8 o'clock in the morning, I could be out there all day and not even start, so not everybody can do that. I looked at that and I said, well, who can't do that. Everybody can do that, and that's not the case. And fortunately, my wife and I have started a foundation not just to help the high functioning athletes out there, but to also help the families, the siblings, because right now there's no help out there for them at all, and they're drowning. And when someone like myself or my wife can come along and give them a little bit of help and a little bit of encouragement, it's a huge thing. And the thing I've noticed is even other children in the family who are normal. So all the attention goes to the person who has the autism, and the other two are left out to help them, have them be a normal life, to help them, to help themselves, and all that. So it's a great foundation. It's at BillyMayfair.org to know more information about it. We haven't set the site up completely yet. We're in the process of doing that. We're trying to get some names to help us, other professional athletes, but it's really to help not just professional athletes, but the families and the wives and the spouses and the siblings of those athletes, to help them make their lives a little bit easier, to make the people who have the autism a little bit easier. And I've had such an honor in the last few years to go around and talk to schools and talk to golf teams and the kids in school and that have this, and not just to see their face light up, but to see their parents' face light up, and hey, you get it. Yes, you understand this, and this is what we're going through, and it's okay. We're going to get you help, and all that has really made a big difference in my life. I feel like it's kind of my way to get back to the game a little bit, that I love, and I love doing it. And no matter how tired I am out there after the round or something like that, to talk to a family, to a kid, to the parents, just energizes me to no end. So it's something that's very dear to my heart. It's very personal, and it's dear to my wife's heart too. And as we're finding out, it's having autism is very common out there now. So we're working hard to do that.
Yeah, well, thanks again for sharing. I know I watched some interviews with you and your wife, and Tammy. Obviously, it sounds like she did a lot. I heard she even caddied for you too. So you guys really
Yeah,
put the marriage to the test there.
we
And,
put the marriage to the test. Yeah. She caddied for me most of the year last year, but I've got someone now in the bag. But she's still telling me what to do, as they all do. That won't
right.
change. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, I really appreciate you sharing and giving back and trying to help others with that diagnosis. And is that something that you're just, having to consistently like check up with, or is that like, what does that look like for the day to day or week to week? Is that something that you're just constantly monitoring
It's just
for yourself?
Yeah. It's just something, you learn things every day. You learn, even when I speak to the kids out there and I talk to their families, I learn things every day. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just something that it's not uncommon anymore, and people are realizing it. But what I've tried to tell to parents and the kids out there, that having high functioning autism is not a disability. It is a gift. And God's
Mm-hmm.
given you this gift for a reason. And he gave it to me to play golf. And why he's given it to you, I can't answer that, but you will find out. And just sometimes you just need to have them hear that, and it changes a lot in their life.
Yes, that is very powerful stuff. And once again, thanks for, giving back and sharing and helping others with it. I know that it's a full circle moment for you, and I'm sure it's going to help a ton of people. And I'll make sure to link to the website once that's all live and ready to go, so that way more people can learn about it. And once again, just want to say thank you so much for being a guest on Wicked Smart Golf, for sharing so much knowledge with us. And once again, just congrats on your continued success. Obviously, beating this guy's pretty cool, but to be able to be a
He's still looking at
successful
me. He's still giving me those
he's
eyes. You know
he's
that?
still looking at you. That's why I have Tiger right there, just in case I feel a little lazy and don't want to do it. I'm like, well, what would Tiger do? He's practicing right now. Stop whining, get to the golf course. And but thanks again just for sharing so much, and just a great career, and wishing you tons of success. And I want to see you win here in Phoenix when I go watch you.
Well, that'd be great. Wonderful. Thank you. And like I said, I'm back in Phoenix. Let's get together. And if we don't go play, we'll just go chip around a little bit.
Fantastic. Love to learn some short game tips from you. So thanks again for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.